Revenge with Karen.
I said no dogs, lady, health code. That was the first sentence Lisa ever spoke to me, before she even asked my name. I was holding a ceramic bulldog planter. I had just signed the lease 2 hours earlier. Still had the pen indent on my thumb and a celebratory cupcake in the passenger seat of my Hyundai. But Lisa, the plaza's property manager and apparent queen of misplaced authority, one look at my dusty pink blazer and air-dried curls and decided she didn't like me. I was the wrong kind of woman, too cheerful, too independent, not her. The boutique was my dream. A curated home goods store with a cozy minimalist vibe, copper lighting, handmade mugs, bath oils that didn't smell like your grandmother's medicine cabinet. I'd spent 12 years managing floor sets for chain retailers, waiting tables on weekends, stockpiling every cent like a Depression-era widow. This was it, my moment. And Lisa? She was supposed to hand me the keys and say, "Welcome aboard." Instead, she glanced up from her chip tablet and barked, "Hope you've got insurance." Last girl didn't last 6 months. There was no last girl, I checked. But I smiled, signed anyway. Told myself she was just the kind of tired mean that fades with time. I even brought her a seasonal wreath 2 days later. Said she was allergic to cinnamon and left it in the lobby bathroom. Still had the clearance tag on it when I took it back. The plaza itself wasn't glamorous. Just a U-shaped strip wedged between a dentist's office and a nail salon that specialized in acrylic claws and baby pink chrome. But it had foot traffic, a local bank, a yoga studio, and a corner unit with street visibility. That was mine. And for the first week, I floated. Painted the walls bone white, on floating shelves I couldn't really afford. Hand-labeled price tags with a little heart next to the J in Jessica's Market. That J was everything I'd worked for. Every sleepless night. Every passive-aggressive email from district managers who once misspelled my name in 5 different ways. If this story already has you gripping your stress ball like a lifeline, or nodding like, "Yep, classic strip mall sabotage," then hey, take a second to hit that subscribe button and throw us a like. It's free, and honestly, it keeps this whole revenge-fueled storytelling operation caffeinated and slightly unhinged. Back to it. Lisa started small, unplugged my open sign once, claimed it was shorting out the circuit. The yoga studio's neon lotus sign, same wattage, no problem. Then came the trash warnings. Memo slipped under my door at 8:03 a.m. about unauthorized waste disposal. Only problem, the dumpster behind my unit was locked from the outside, and the trash bag in question was full of fast food wrappers. I hadn't eaten anything in years. Lisa just shrugged when I brought it up. Maybe don't throw your competitors under the bus and you'll sleep better. I started to worry I'd made a mistake, but I couldn't back out now. Not after the lease. Startup costs, the branding. My friends had thrown me a Boss Babe brunch. My mom had written "so proud of you" in icing on a sheet cake. I had something to prove, not just to them, but to myself. Then I met Janine. She ran the store next to mine, Sassy Stitch & Co., a boutique that sold rhinestone hoodies and wine tumblers with slogans like "Mommy needs Merlot." Lisa loved her. Visited daily. Shared Instagram reels of Janine's sidewalk sip Saturdays on her personal account. And whenever something happened to my store, like the time my packages got rerouted to the vape shop across the street, Janine just smiled and said, "We all go through an adjustment phase." But Janine's shop never seemed to get cited, or blocked off for HVAC repairs, or left without water on a Saturday. Mine did, every week, like clockwork. I did what every woman in suburbia raised on Pinterest and petty trauma does. I got organized. Printed every email, dated every voicemail, photographed every blocked entrance and mislabeled shipment. Started a folder titled "Lisa's Little Accidents." Because here's the thing, when someone wants you to fail quietly, the loudest thing you can do is survive with documentation. I wasn't sure yet how I'd use it, but I knew one thing for damn sure. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about boundaries, and Lisa had just crossed mine. The first time the lights cut out, I thought it was just an old plaza quirk. Flickering bulbs, humming ballast, maybe a squirrel in the transformer playing Russian roulette with the wires. I shrugged, reopened the breaker, and called it a fluke. The second time, it was Saturday. I had a full window display up for the spring collection, linen throws, teal mason jar vases, those ridiculous wooden signs that say things like "inhale tacos, exhale negativity." I'd spent 6 hours staging it. By noon, foot traffic was decent. People were browsing. A woman bought 3 diffuser sets and told me it smelled like Target without the chaos. My cheeks hurt from smiling. Then, darkness, total blackout. Lights, register, soft jazz playlist gone mid-saxophone solo. I checked the breaker. Fine. Called the utility company. Hadn't scheduled anything. But Lisa? She just strolled by with a Diet Dr. Pepper and said, "Oh, weird, probably overload from all those fancy lights. Try unplugging a few." I wanted to scream, but I smiled instead. Told her I'd handle it. Told myself I was being dramatic, that maybe the grid really was finicky. But then Monday rolled around, and a surprise maintenance van blocked the back entrance. No call, no email, just a work order taped to the inside of my locked door. Emergency HVAC coil descaling. Janine's store, wide open, festooned in glitter and discount signage, sipping mimosas with some local influencer in bootcut jeans and 4-inch lashes. They were hosting a mom boss pop-up with sample-sized wine and tote bags that said I run on caffeine, chaos, and Chardonnay. My door stayed closed the whole day. Missed 5 scheduled pickups, 1 delivery, and my sanity. When I texted Lisa, she responded an hour later with, "Oops, slipped through the cracks. We'll get you next time," with a winking emoji. A winking emoji. I showed my friend Shelby, a no-nonsense nurse who once filed a formal complaint because the hospital ran out of her favorite pens. She read the text and deadpanned that emoji's assault with a passive-aggressive weapon. Still, part of me wasn't sure. Maybe I was just overwhelmed. New business, new systems, everything. Maybe I didn't know how these things worked yet. Maybe, until the week of Easter. I had prepped for it like it was Black Friday in pastels. Hand-wrapped candle bundles, made a whole self-care egg hunt promo, even ordered mini chocolate bunnies with custom labels that read "Hop into Happiness" at Jessica's Market. I came in early that Sunday to set up. And there it was. A handwritten sign taped across my glass door, temporarily closed due to code compliance. Do not enter. No contact name. No citation number. No prior notice. Just taped on top of my store hours like some kind of funeral wreath for my business. I lost it. Not publicly, never publicly, but inside something cracked. I ripped the sign down, called Lisa, and got voicemail, called again. Nothing, emailed, nothing. By noon, half the day's appointments had canceled. One woman even posted on Yelp about how disappointing it was that Jessica's closed without warning during a holiday. I watched that review go live from the break room of the coffee shop 2 doors down. Janine's sidewalk pop-up was in full swing. Lisa was helping her hang streamers. Laughing, drinking pink canned rosé like she didn't just ghost a legal tenant. I went home that night and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page I wrote, "Incident log, Jessica's Market." I started printing everything. Every email, every ignored request, every text. I timestamped voicemails, saved video from the parking lot camera I'd installed after my last misplaced delivery. I scanned my lease until the fine print blurred, highlighting anything about access rights, maintenance notice periods, and quiet enjoyment. Lisa liked to smirk when she saw me hauling my little printer out of the back room. Getting crafty, she'd snip. I'd smile back, just making memories. Truth was, I'd started dreaming about her downfall the same way some women dream about wedding dresses, in detail, with lighting. A soundtrack, even. But I kept my head down. Let her think she was winning. Let her think I was just a frazzled newbie too soft for strip mall politics. Let her snicker behind her clipboard while I played nice. Still, I had nights where I questioned everything. My lease, my sanity, my choice to put everything I owned into 4 walls surrounded by fluorescent lights and passive aggression in khakis. Was I just being sensitive? Was I letting one bitter woman live rent-free in my head? Then I found the utility bill. Charged for a week, my store had been completely shut down. Lisa had never submitted the outage report. Suddenly, the self-doubt vanished. You ever heard of a landlord who owns more zip ties than leases? My accountant, Theo, muttered, half-joking, while flipping through my expense log. We were sitting in his cluttered office, surrounded by old tax codes and an air fryer he swore changed his life. I'd gone in to run projections for Q2, but instead ended up dumping my whole Lisa saga on him like emotional confetti. He didn't laugh, squinted at the maintenance logs and frowned. "Jess," he said slowly, "this isn't just mismanagement. This smells like a pattern. You're not the first tenant she's cornered, I bet. Probably not even the third." That landed harder than I wanted to admit. Because if that were true, if Lisa had done this to other people, why hadn't anyone spoken up? Theo shrugged like he could read my mind. Because most small business owners don't have time for war. They fold, walk away. I hit it off as bad luck. And Lisa, she counts on that. That night, I took a long bath with a stress relief balm that smelled like false optimism and eucalyptus. And when I came out, I did what any self-respecting woman with a Wi-Fi connection and a grudge does. I started digging. I Googled her name, her maiden name, her middle name. Cross-checked every version against property databases, tenant complaint forums, Better Business Bureau reports, even the Facebook group for our town's buy/sell/trade/gossip page. Took less than 20 minutes before I hit the motherlode. Different strip mall, different town, but same Lisa, same complaints, blocked dumpsters, random inspections, lease threats, all tied to a now-defunct LLC where she'd been listed as operations liaison. One comment from a business called the Bloom Boutique made my stomach twist. Power shut off the day of our grand opening. Accidentally, there were too many similarities. The accidents, the sabotage, the emotional warfare designed to wear you down without leaving bruises. But what caught my eye was a little thread in a landlord subreddit. Yes, I'd gone that deep, where someone mentioned a plaza in our county being owned by a patchwork of investors through LLCs. Lots of turnover. Lots of internal politics. That plaza was mine, so I took it a step further. I posed as a local entrepreneur looking to invest and called the contact listed on the tax records for the plaza's holding company. A woman named Pam answered, sweet voice, probably crocheted in her free time. I asked about investment opportunities and mentioned I'd heard a few shares might be floating around. Well, she said cautiously, there's a quarterly shareholder meeting coming up next Friday. It's technically open to prospective partners, if you're serious. I said I was. Dead serious. I borrowed Theo's nicer blazer, straightened my curls, and walked into that meeting like I belonged in a Diane Keaton movie about revenge through real estate. It was held in the back conference room of a mid-tier Marriott. Coffee in styrofoam cups, boxed muffins sweating in cling wrap, a folding table with paper name placards, none of which read Lisa. She wasn't there. There were 7 people, most of them older, mostly quiet, mostly distracted. One guy spent the entire time comparing Medicare Advantage plans on his tablet. But the spreadsheet they passed around, current unit ownership and leaseholder status, was the gold mine. Half the units were owned by different LLCs, some partially vacant. A few, like Janine's, were technically leased by a company that hadn't filed updated paperwork in over a year. And 2 units had been pulled from leasing altogether, marked simply as under review. I circled one with my finger. Who manages these? I asked, casual. Pam leaned over. Lisa was handling tenant relations. We've been meaning to revisit that. Has she worked here long? Pam blinked, on and off. She has a way of, let's say, making herself indispensable. For a while, the way she said it told me everything. Lisa wasn't untouchable, just tolerated. She'd built a fortress of favors and fear, but not respect. After the meeting, I didn't head straight home. Sat in my car, documents on the passenger seat, and stared at the empty storefront 3 units down from mine. The one Lisa had claimed was being renovated, though no work had been done in months. It was vacant, technically for lease, but listed under the same LLC from the spreadsheet, an LLC currently reviewing its holdings. I took a picture of the door, then the mailbox, then the utilities notice wedged between them. Then I emailed Pam and asked, politely, to be notified if any investment shares changed hands. Even a small stake, I wrote, just enough to be involved. I didn't expect a reply that night, but it came. 4 hours later, noted, and just between us, I think you'd be a refreshing change of pace. I read that line twice, then shut my laptop and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to outgrow it, because you don't win against people like Lisa by yelling louder. Win by showing up in the rooms they think you'll never enter. It was supposed to be a win. My first real pop-up event outside the plaza, local artisan market, tent rental, branded tablecloths, the whole Pinterest momming combat boots vibe. I even brought complimentary sachets made of lavender and sarcasm. Business was steady. I moved over 30 items in 5 hours, collected emails, got 2 wholesale inquiries. I drove home sunburned, exhausted, grinning like a lunatic. Felt like maybe, just maybe, the tide was turning. Until I pulled into the plaza that night and saw the sign, temporarily closed by order of property management. Please do not enter, in bold red letters, taped inside my glass door. Just like the Easter stunt, but this one had actual city logos photocopied onto it, like Lisa had spent her afternoon on a forgery field trip. I yanked the sign down and unlocked the door, heart punching my ribs. The lights worked. Nothing seemed out of place. But my voicemail, 5 messages from customers. 2 were confused, 1 was angry, 1 was accusatory. 1 asked if I'd closed permanently and suggested I learn how to communicate better with clients. All left in the 5 hours I'd been hustling at a market 3 towns over. The final message from my UPS driver. Hey Jess, tried to drop your shipment, but no one was here. Lisa said your store was closed indefinitely. Let me know when you're back, indefinitely. The word made my neck go cold. I didn't call Lisa, I didn't even text. I just walked to the back room, sat on a box of reclaimed wood coasters, and started mapping out my funeral plan for her career. Because this wasn't petty anymore. This was targeted. The next day, I asked the nail salon owner, Marta, if she'd seen anything. She glanced over her rhinestone glasses and whispered. Lisa came by around noon with some papers. Said she was handling a mold issue. Didn't sound right. But what can you do? I smiled tightly. Oh, I have ideas. Then came the HVAC inspection. Same pattern, no prior notice. I arrived Friday morning to 2 techs in gray coveralls unscrewing my vent grates. Work order from management, one of them said, barely glancing at me. I called Lisa. She actually picked up. Oh, sorry, she said, faking concern with the subtlety of a used car ad. Thought we looped you in, should be a quick weekend fix. I had a seasonal sale planned. Flyers printed, emails sent, influencer tagged. It was my highest traffic event besides Christmas, and now I was sitting on a literal pile of unsellable spring merchandise while my store smelled like Freon and lost hope. Meanwhile, Janine, sidewalk sale, balloons, discount racks. Lisa herself out there handing out flyers like a PTA mom on Adderall. They even had a table with margaritas and monogrammed plastic cups. I stood behind my glass, arms crossed, watching Lisa high-five Janine like they'd just won a reality show. That image burned into my memory, their little victory party, while I paced an empty boutique that technically couldn't open because my HVAC vents were unstable. That night, I called Theo and said 2 words, find me a lawyer. He did. A calm, sharp woman named Mallory, whose voice could slice drywall and who once won a case against a country club that tried to repossess a member's locker. I didn't want lawsuits. I didn't want drama. I wanted leverage. Mallory reviewed my lease line by line and highlighted several little gems, including 1 clause about non-interference with business operations and another about equal treatment of tenants under plaza policy. Even better, she confirmed my renewal rights were airtight. Lisa couldn't boot me without cause, but it was the next piece that made my spine straighten. Jess, she said, you mentioned wanting to explore ownership. I nodded, mouth dry. Well, I pulled recent filings. There's a minority stake, just under 10%, quietly being offered through an LLC consolidating part of the holding structure. I know someone managing the sale, discreetly. My voice barely worked. Could I buy it? If you want a seat at the table, she said, this is how you get one. The next week blurred. I liquidated a chunk of my retirement fund. Called in a favor from my old regional CFO, Mark, who still owed me from the time I bailed his store out of a backroom audit disaster. I moved quietly. Legally, Mallory made sure my name wouldn't show up publicly until the paperwork was final. I didn't tell a soul, not even Theo. Just kept smiling, printing receipts, restocking shelves under fake HVAC repairs, while Lisa and Janine toasted to my supposed unraveling. But every receipt I filed, every voicemail I saved, every accidental maintenance disruption, they all went into the growing binder Mallory labeled Harper V. Management potential. Weren't there yet, but the match had been struck, and I was done playing defense. The wire transfer cleared on a Wednesday. Mallory called just after lunch. Her version of a victory drumroll was a 2-word email that simply read, we closed. No emoji, no exclamation mark. Just the understated efficiency of a woman who once made a Fortune 500 board member cry during deposition. I now owned 10% of the plaza. Technically, stake was held through a shell entity Mallory had structured, Harper and Sage Holdings, LLC, a name that sounded like an artisanal soap company but would look right at home on a ledger. My name wasn't on anything visible yet. That was intentional. If Lisa knew I had a seat at her table, she'd flip that table. I wasn't ready for the noise. Not yet, so I went back to work, smiled, swept, took inventory. Lisa didn't suspect a thing. If anything, she thought I was softening. I let her forget to send me an updated maintenance schedule. Let her claim the parking lot was fully reserved the weekend I asked to host a local artists market. I even nodded when she dropped her usual one-liners like, "Some people just aren't cut out for retail." I nodded and added it to the binder. Mallory taught me to think like a chess player, not a punching bag. You don't stop your opponent from making stupid moves, she said. You just make sure you're holding the rulebook when they do. The binder got heavier. Emails, photos, memos from Janine's shop taped over mine. Copies of delivery were routes that mysteriously bypassed my store address altogether. I even started syncing footage from my security camera to a private cloud folder Mallory could access at any time. Then came the trash violation. Lisa strutted in one morning like a school principal with a vendetta. Clipboard in hand, oversized sunglasses that screamed day drunk or hiding contempt. Probably both. "We need to talk," she said, before I could even offer a good morning. She walked me out the back of the store, pointed to the shared dumpster, and theatrically gasped like a community theater actress playing Angry Resident #3. "Overflowing trash. Not acceptable. This could attract rodents, Jessica. It's a lease violation." I stared at the dumpster. The bags in question were black, industrial strength, stuffed with boxes from a vape shipment. I don't sell anything remotely related to vaping. Janine, however, had launched a wellness vape line 3 days earlier. Her flyers were still on the plaza bulletin board. "Calm your inner Karen, one puff at a time." "That's not mine," I said, keeping my voice flat. Lisa smirked. "You'll still be cited." I already filed the notice. She handed me a printout like she was serving me brunch and not an empty threat. Accepted it with a smile. "Thanks," I said. Then I walked straight into my office, scanned it, and uploaded it to the binder. Later that day, I checked the security cam. Footage showed a man in a Sassy Stitch & Co. shirt dragging the bags out around 6:17 a.m. I clipped it, added timestamps, and forwarded it to Mallory with the subject line, "Compliance Theater, Act Roman 2. I didn't reply to Lisa. Didn't challenge her. Didn't even acknowledge the write-up. Less she knew, the more she misstepped. Meanwhile, I started attending shareholder briefings via Zoom, voice only, under the Harper and Sage moniker. I kept notes. I asked questions. Innocent ones. How are tenant complaint reviews handled? Is there a quarterly audit of maintenance logs? No one questioned me. Most were just relieved someone still gave a damn about the place. At night, I walked the perimeter of the plaza and took photos of flickering lights, potholes left unrepaired, signage from Janine's store blocking shared walkways. I wasn't collecting evidence, I was building a portfolio. The tension shifted. It wasn't just frustration anymore, it was strategy. The kind that hums under your skin and keeps you sharp. I didn't rage. I documented, didn't flinch. I observed. I let Lisa keep digging, unaware that I was slowly replacing the dirt with glass. Janine, meanwhile, started acting twitchy. Less smug, or careful. Once, she even popped in with a fake sweet, "Hey girl, you know we love a little healthy competition, right?" I just nodded, totally. Nothing personal, just business. She didn't know how true that was. Because while she was pushing vape pens that smelled like lilac and lost ambition, I was pushing paperwork straight into the hands of people who actually mattered. And Lisa, she kept playing landlord. Unaware she'd already rented her own downfall. Knew something was coming when Lisa stopped making eye contact. For 2 weeks, she'd barely looked at me. No fake smiles, no passive-aggressive jabs, just silence and stiff walk-bys, like I was a coworker she once hooked up with at a company retreat and regretted deeply. I almost missed the insults, almost. Then, on a Tuesday morning with the humidity thick enough to chew, she came in carrying a clipboard like it was a murder weapon. "Jessica," she said sharply, "need to talk." I didn't flinch. Just looked up from arranging a shelf of hand-poured candles labeled "Smells Like Sanity" and said, of course, "What's going on?" She pulled a folded packet from the clipboard, already smug. "You're in violation of Section 8C of your lease. Improper use of storage space and ongoing complaints from neighboring tenants. This is your formal notice to vacate. 30 days. My heart didn't race. My face didn't twitch. I took the paper and scanned it slowly, even though I already knew what Section 8C said. I'd memorized the lease the way some women memorize wine pairings or their kids' allergy protocols. I handed the packet back, my voice even. "You might want to recheck that section. It only applies to units exceeding square footage use by more than 15%, and I haven't installed a single extra fixture. As for tenant complaints, unless they're formal and documented through property management, they don't hold up." Her nostrils flared like a bull ready to charge a matador made of Pinterest boards. "You think you're untouchable?" She hissed. "You're done here. I'll have you removed myself if I have to." And that's when it happened. That weird moment where all the fury inside me didn't boil over, it cooled. Hardened, I wasn't angry. I was ready. Lisa, I said quietly, everything you just handed me, everything you just said, is now part of a legal record. I suggest you proceed carefully. She scoffed and spun on her orthopedic heel. I watched her storm out, slapping her clipboard against her thigh like she was trying to spank the truth into it. I didn't react. I forwarded the notice and a transcript of the conversation, thanks to a small mic tucked into the register counter, Mallory's idea, to Mallory, who responded in under 7 minutes with, "Not valid. Now she's exposed." We escalate this her way on paper in court with receipts. The next morning, I arrived early to reset a shipment of ceramic trays shaped like flamingos. It was barely 6:45, the sky just yawning open, dew still clinging to the windows. But when I reached my door, I stopped cold. A padlock, glossy black, brand new, clamped tightly around the latch, no note, no notice, just there. Someone had physically declared war in the middle of a pastel-themed battlefield. For 30 full seconds, I didn't move, just stared. My hands didn't tremble, my throat didn't tighten, but my jaw locked hard enough to make my ears ring. I took a photo, then another from a different angle. I walked around back, same thing. Lisa had padlocked both doors, as if she thought I'd tunnel in through the floor like a home Dacre hobbit. I called Mallory. She picked up on the first. "It's done," I said. "I figured," she replied. "Ready to swing the axe?" "Not yet," I said. "We're going to hang it over her first." By the time Lisa arrived, 40 minutes later, iced coffee in hand, her purse swinging like she'd just won the Price is Right, I was seated in a folding chair across from my boutique door. Calm, composed, dressed in all black like I was attending the funeral of her credibility. She saw me, smirked. "Didn't think you'd be up this early," she said. "I'm a small business owner," I replied, "not a saboteur." That wiped the smirk right off her face. She didn't speak again, just jangled her keys, pretending to check locks like she wasn't the one who'd installed them, then walked inside Janine's shop and shut the door. I didn't follow, didn't shout. Instead, I took out my phone, opened the folder labeled Final Push, and sent everything, the padlock photos, time-stamped security footage of her locking the doors at 10:37 p.m., the voicemail from a supplier who'd tried to make a delivery that morning to Mallory. She replied almost instantly. "It's time." So I waited, not for Lisa, not for the cops, but for the next move that would flip the entire game board. Because when you own the rules and document every foul, you don't have to fight dirty. You just have to let your opponent keep proving who they are. Lisa had just proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that she was ready to be removed. By force, if necessary. Just not in the way she expected. Saturday morning. Grand opening weekend for the Spring Revival collection. I'd been teasing it on social media for weeks. New inventory, vendor collabs, a smell bar where customers could build their own essential oil blends. I had even booked a local violinist to play outside the store. A violinist, for God's sake. The only music I heard when I pulled into the lot was Lisa's voice. "You're trespassing. Step away from the door, Jessica, or I will call the police." She was already standing by the storefront, arms folded across her knockoff Kate Spade, blocking the entrance like she owned it. Padlock still there. Janine was setting up another sidewalk sale behind her, sipping something bright pink and pretending not to stare. I glanced at the table. Personalized wine tumblers again. Read this is my last nerve. I was tempted to buy it. I stepped out of my car, keys in hand, phone already recording in my back pocket. "You're making a mistake, Lisa." "No, Jessica. You did that when you violated your lease for the last time. You've been warned. Now leave or I'm calling the police." I smiled. Slow. Calm. Years of rage curdled into one simple sentence. "Go ahead." Her nostrils flared, thumb already stabbing at her phone. "Yes, I need police assistance. Woman is refusing to vacate a commercial unit. She's trespassing and becoming aggressive." Aggressive? I hadn't moved. 15 minutes later, a squad car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. One older, buzz-cut, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The younger one clocked Lisa immediately. His face did that thing polite men do when they recognize entitlement in its natural habitat. Lisa pounced before they even got close. "She's refusing to leave," she said, gesturing to me like I was a feral possum. "She's been evicted formally. She broke the lease, and now she's trying to force her way back in." I had to padlock the door for safety. The older officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, we'll need to speak to both of you." "Do you have paperwork?" "Oh, do I?" Lisa said with a theatrical scoff, rifling through a stack of slightly crumpled documents she probably printed from a Word template at 1 a.m. I didn't interrupt. Let her finish her little drama. Then I pulled out my folder, neatly tabbed, laminated where it mattered. First, the lease. Original and renewed, signed and notarized. Clause 8C highlighted in orange. Then, the security camera stills. Lisa locking both doors on Thursday at 10:37 p.m., then again at 6:15 a.m. Friday. Then, a letter from my attorney outlining my 10% ownership stake in the plaza through Harper and Sage Holdings, including meeting minutes and purchase confirmation. I even included the county property records. And last, a flash drive labeled Exhibit A, Mallory's idea. It contained video of Lisa threatening me, the compliance citation over Janine's trash, and her shrieking about removing me herself. I handed the folder to the older officer. He flipped through it slowly. The silence stretched long enough for Lisa's fake confidence to start cracking. "Where'd you get this?" he finally asked me, tapping the ownership certificate. "County records, all public. I'm a part owner of this plaza." He looked at me, then at Lisa. "Is that true?" Lisa opened her mouth, closed it, blinked like a dial-up modem trying to reboot. The younger officer glanced at the flash drive, then back at Lisa. "Ma'am," he said, voice calm but heavy, "just called us to remove a legal tenant, who also happens to be a part owner of the property, with a valid lease and video proof that you physically barred her from her place of business." Lisa swallowed. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Buzz Cut Officer handed her documents back. "I suggest you unlock the door." But now, the violinist arrived at that moment. She paused mid-step, saw the squad car, and wisely began tuning her strings from a distance. Lisa slowly, painfully walked to the front door, fumbled her keys, took 3 tries to get the padlock off. She didn't look at me once. The officers waited until the lock dropped to the ground with a metallic thud. Then the younger one turned to me. "Ma'am, would you like us to file an incident report?" I shook my head. "I already have one. Just needed the follow-up footage." He smiled faintly, nodded, and walked away with his partner. Janine was nowhere to be seen. I stepped into my boutique. The scent of lavender and lemon balm still clung to the air. Everything exactly where I left it. My flamingo trays. My little chalkboard sign, "Welcome back, spring." Lisa lingered outside, stunned, humiliated, hands twitching like she couldn't decide whether to slam something or vanish into dust. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because the tide didn't just turn. It drowned her in silence. Email hit my inbox Monday morning at exactly 8:02 a.m. Subject line: Interim Management Notice Plaza Administrative Update. 3 short paragraphs. No fluff, no apologies, just a quiet execution. Effective immediately, Lisa Keller was placed on administrative leave pending internal review and legal counsel review of tenant relations, property access protocol, and code enforcement actions. It didn't say my name. Didn't need to. Every single syllable of that email dripped with quiet consequence. Mallory had sent the footage, the documents, the police report. The plaza's board, those quiet, distracted shareholders sipping lukewarm coffee and discussing sidewalk repaving 6 weeks ago, were suddenly very, very alert. That same afternoon, Janine's store had a surprise visit. Code compliance. Signage audit. Review of her rent records going back 18 months. Temporary closure order taped to her door with city letterhead and that sharp, glorious phrase, "Pending inspection findings." I watched from my boutique, sipping a green tea that tasted like justice. Didn't wave, didn't gloat. Just arranged a new display of planters shaped like chubby owls and let the universe do its work. By Wednesday, my phone rang. It was Pam from the board. "Jessica," she said, with the tone of someone both apologetic and opportunistic, "Board would like to formally invite you to the upcoming meeting this Friday. We believe your insight would be valuable, given recent events." I knew what that meant, knew the subtext. Someone had whispered that I wasn't just a tenant anymore. I was a voting shareholder with receipts, footage, and a lawyer who didn't blink. I said yes. The meeting was held in the same boring conference room. No muffins this time, just legal pads and tension. 7 people in attendance. Pam opened with a summary of recent disruptions, glossing over specifics, but emphasizing a need for new direction in plaza operations. Then she turned to me. "Jessica, there's been discussion about filling Lisa's position. The board wondered if you'd consider a property liaison role. Temporary. Paid." Every head turned. I didn't hesitate. "No, thank you." They blinked. Pam even looked a little hurt. "I didn't come here to manage the wreckage," I said softly. "Came here to stop the bleeding. That's done now." She nodded slowly. "Understood. Well, we do have one item requiring shareholder vote. She opened a folder, pulled out a paper with Lisa's name at the top. Motion for contract termination grounds, malfeasance, breach of protocol, tenant harassment. It needed 5 votes. They had 4. Pam slid it toward me. Do you approve the motion? I didn't ask questions. Didn't need to see the fine print. I just picked up the pen, signed my name under the Harper and Sage Holdings header, and pushed the paper back without a word. Pam looked down, then looked up. Motion passes. That was it. No fireworks, no screaming. Just a line drawn through Lisa's name in blue ink. Afterward, they asked if I wanted to say anything. I said no. But I did stay for a moment. Let it all sink in. The silence. The weightlessness of knowing I didn't have to fight anymore, that I'd dismantled the problem root and branch without raising my voice once. On my way out, I passed Janine. She was sitting on a bench outside her shuttered store, phone in hand, brows knit in panic. A clipboard-wielding man was measuring her sandwich board sign, the one that used to block my entrance twice a week. She looked up at me. I smiled just a little, then walked back to my boutique, unlocked the door, no padlock, no threats, and stepped inside. The scent of lemon balm hit me first, then the low hum of my diffuser, then the silence, the good kind, not the kind that waits to explode, the kind that means peace. I wasn't interested in being queen of this strip mall. I just wanted the mold scraped off the walls. And I'd done it with ink, with patience, and with just enough fire to make sure no one ever tried to lock me out again. Sound of hammers tapping against drywall had become a strange sort of lullaby. Rhythmic, steady, cleansing. They were gutting Janine's old space now, ripping out the glitter decals, sanding down the walls where wine slogans once screamed in metallic cursive. The storefront had been empty for 3 weeks, officially surrendered back to Plaza control after operational noncompliance forced a final closure. That was the language the board used. I preferred the word vacated, voluntarily or otherwise. I stood in my boutique, right hand resting on a reclaimed wood checkout counter that I'd sanded myself, watching a contractor wheel a pallet of floor tile through the corridor. White subway tile, matte finish. Clean, classic, uncompromising. Morning, Miss Harper, he called. That still caught me off guard sometimes. Miss Harper, stakeholder, owner. The woman who now had final sign-off on tenant compliance, lease renewals, and signage policies. There were days I didn't feel like a boss. Didn't feel like the woman who'd stared down a clipboard tyrant with nothing but laminated paperwork and legal backup. But then someone would say it, Miss Harper, and I'd remember. I earned every syllable of that name. The boutique had doubled in size. The wall between my unit and Janine's had come down last week. Now the space breathed differently. Light flowed from one side to the other like water through a fresh vein. The smell of lemon balm still lingered, but now it mixed with sawdust and possibility. I'd expanded the inventory, added a reading nook with locally made throws, indie press magazines, and free espresso on Saturdays. The first customer to walk in after the wall came down just stood in the middle of the room and said, "It feels like this place is finally what it was meant to be." It was, because there was no more sabotage. No more late-night padlocks, no more faux compliance visits, or mysteriously rerouted deliveries. The new property manager, a man named Drew with a calm voice and a military buzz cut, sent me weekly update reports and quarterly financials. He once apologized because the sidewalk cleaning crew came 10 minutes late. I didn't know how to respond, so I just said thank you and hung up. Control didn't feel loud. It didn't feel like power suits and slammed conference doors. Felt like quiet mornings. It felt like unlocking your own door without checking over your shoulder. It felt like peace, paid for in receipts and restraint. Last week, a local reporter called. She'd gotten a tip from someone, probably Janine's cousin, who still posted vague, bitter TikToks about corporate betrayal in cute packaging. The reporter said, "There's a video floating around. Cop telling a tenant she tried to evict her landlord. Are you that landlord?" I said nothing. She tried again. It's going viral, has over 400,000 views. People are calling it the classiest takedown ever filmed in a strip mall. I declined to comment, not because I didn't have words, but because silence has weight when you've already said everything that matters with action. She hung up disappointed. I went back to work. Hung up a new wall sign, Jessica's Market now with room to breathe. I stood there a moment, watching the reflection of the boutique in the glass. I could see the front windows, the new planters, the chubby owls, the cash register where I'd once clipped Lisa's fake violation notice with a paperclip and a whisper of spite. Then I looked at the keys on the hook behind the counter. There were more now: the main door, the back door, the connecting unit, and the security panel rewired after the expansion. The funny thing was, I didn't even need them half the time because everyone knew who they belonged to. I didn't take it personally when she tried to evict me. I just made sure the next person with keys knew who paid for the door. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.